I never thought I would be the kind of man telling a story like this. For most of my life, I believed that infidelity was something that happened to other people, something you heard about in whispered conversations or saw in movies late at night. I was the guy who trusted easily, who believed that love, once promised, was solid and unbreakable. I believed that if you worked hard, stayed loyal, and showed up every day, nothing truly ugly could creep into your home. I was wrong, and what I discovered was way more dirty and nasty than I had ever expected, not in the way people usually imagine, but in how deeply it poisoned everything I thought was real. My name is Daniel Carter. I was 37 when my marriage began to quietly fall apart, even though at the time, I didn't know it. My wife, Emily, and I had been married for 11 years. We lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio, in a house that looked exactly like you'd expect from the outside. White siding, a small porch, a neatly trimmed lawn. The kind of place people slowed down to admire and think, they've got it figured out. Emily and I met in college. She was warm, thoughtful, and had a way of listening that made you feel like the most important person in the room. When we married, I believed I had chosen someone who would walk beside me through anything. We built a life the slow, honest way. Jobs, bills, weekend grocery trips, family dinners. Nothing flashy, but it felt real. If I look back now, I can see the small cracks forming long before everything broke. At the time, though, I brushed them off. Emily started staying late at work more often. She worked in marketing for a mid-sized firm downtown, and deadlines, she said, were getting tougher. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She began guarding her phone more closely, flipping it face down when I entered the room, stepping outside to take calls. I told myself it was stress. Everyone has phases like that. The first real shift I felt wasn't anger or suspicion. It was distance. Emily laughed less at the dinner table. She stopped asking about my day in detail. Our conversations became surface level, functional. What time is dinner? Did you pay the electric bill? Can you pick up milk? We were roommates pretending to be married. One evening, I tried to talk to her about it. I remember sitting on the couch, the TV muted, the room filled with that awkward silence that feels heavier than shouting. I asked her if everything was okay, if I'd done something wrong. She smiled in a tired way and said she was just overwhelmed, that she loved me, that we were fine. I wanted to believe her, so I did. The truth started revealing itself in the most ordinary way. A mistake, a careless moment. Emily forgot her tablet at home one morning while rushing to work. That tablet was synced with her phone. I didn't intend to snoop. I honestly didn't. I picked it up to check the time, and a notification popped up. A message preview. A name I didn't recognize. Mark. The message itself wasn't explicit. That's what made it worse. It said, "Last night was intense. We shouldn't have stayed that long." My heart dropped into my stomach. My hands started shaking. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Coworkers talk. People exaggerate. But curiosity mixed with fear is a powerful thing. I unlocked the tablet. The rest of the conversation unfolded like something I couldn't stop watching, even though it was destroying me. Weeks of messages, jokes, complaints about work, personal confessions. Then lines that crossed boundaries. Compliments that didn't belong to a married woman. Late-night check-ins. Plans that didn't include me. There were no graphic descriptions, but the emotional betrayal was unmistakable. She talked about feeling alive. About how easy things felt with him. About how complicated her life at home had become. She never used my name. I was reduced to the situation. I felt sick, not angry yet, just hollow. The kind of hollow that makes it hard to breathe. When Emily came home that evening, I didn't confront her right away. I watched her move through the house like nothing was wrong, humming softly while making dinner. The normalcy of it felt cruel. When I finally asked her who Mark was, her face changed instantly. Not confusion, not surprise, fear. That's when I knew everything I hoped wasn't true absolutely was. She tried to explain at first. Said he was a coworker. Said it started as emotional support. Said she never meant for it to go this far. The words came fast, tangled, like she was trying to outrun the truth. I asked her if she had been unfaithful. She hesitated for half a second too long before answering. That pause told me everything. What made it dirty and nasty wasn't just the affair itself. It was how deeply she had compartmentalized her life. How she could sit across from me at dinner after spending hours emotionally invested in another man. How she could tell me she loved me while sharing parts of herself with someone else. It wasn't passion that disgusted me. It was deception. Over the next few days, more details surfaced. Not because she volunteered them, but because lies tend to collapse under their own weight. Mark wasn't just a passing distraction. He was someone she had introduced to her friends as just a coworker. Someone she had gone on business trips with and stayed out late with under the excuse of work meetings. She had curated a second version of herself, one where I barely existed. The nastiest part was realizing how carefully planned it all was. Calendars adjusted, stories rehearsed, emotional energy rerouted. It wasn't a mistake. It was a series of choices made over time. I moved into the guest room. The house felt colder, even though it was summer. Friends noticed something was off, but I didn't know how to explain it without feeling ashamed, even though I had done nothing wrong. Emily cried often during those weeks. She said she felt lost. She said she didn't recognize herself anymore. I listened, but something inside me had shut down. Infidelity isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, polite, and incredibly cruel. It erodes trust in ways that don't heal easily. I began questioning everything. Was any of our recent happiness real, or was it just an act? Had she ever been fully present with me, or had I been sharing space with someone already halfway gone? Eventually, Emily admitted that what she felt for Mark wasn't love, but escape. That didn't make it better. In some ways, it made it worse. I was collateral damage in her search for excitement, validation, and something new. We tried counseling, not because I was sure I wanted to save the marriage, but because I needed clarity. The sessions were honest, painful, and exhausting. Emily took responsibility, but accountability doesn't undo damage. Trust, once broken, doesn't respond to apologies the way people hope it will. What changed me most was how the experience forced me to confront my own naivety. I had believed that loyalty was enough to protect a relationship. I learned that communication, presence, and emotional honesty mattered just as much. Still, none of that excused what she did. In the end, we separated. Quietly. No dramatic fights. No public scenes. Just two people accepting that something sacred had been contaminated beyond repair. Friends were shocked. Some tried to minimize it. Others took sides. I stayed mostly silent. Healing doesn't happen in loud conversations. Looking back now, I understand that the real dirtiness of infidelity isn't physical. It's psychological. It's the rewriting of reality without the other person's consent. It's the way it makes you doubt your own instincts, your own memories, your own worth. Today, I live alone in a smaller apartment. Life is simpler, calmer. I've learned to trust again, slowly, carefully. I've also learned that love isn't just about staying, it's about being honest enough to leave before you destroy someone who trusts you. What I went through was way more dirty and nasty than I ever expected, not because of what happened behind closed doors, but because of what happened in plain sight while I was still believing in a promise that had already been broken.